For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
Good evening. Welcome to the Alpena City Council meeting of November 19th, 2018. Call the roll, please.
Hess?
Here.
Johnson is excused. Nielsen?
Here.
Noah?
Here.
And Waldo?
Here. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Any modifications to the agenda this evening? Approval of the minutes for open and closed sessions of November 5th, 2018. Any issues or changes? Bruce? Citizens appearing before council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed 5 minutes each to address your concerns. This is the only time during tonight's meeting you're allowed to address council. If you'd like to do so, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records. Okay, the consent agenda this evening is bills to be allowed in the amount of $327,397.63.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Hess?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
And Waldo?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Tonight we have a presentation from the Thunder Bay Arts Council monitoring oral report. Tim Kuhnlein is here.
Well, good evening, and thank you. I'm here to just follow up on the relationship we had moving forward on the History of Industry sculpture series. That project is complete, and Thunder Bay Arts Council has submitted all the receipts pertaining to the allocation that we for the project. So this is just a follow-up. Everything went very well. It was a year-long project, and what I've given you is just this isn't the invitation, it's obviously past due, but it's just a commemorative document from the event dedicating the sculptures, and you can see that the city is prominently represented there with a number of other government agencies, nonprofits, and local businesses. All told, this was about a $65,000 project with 6 sculptures, 5 at the college site and 1 at the Washington Park site along the bypath. And I think several of you were present that evening for the dedication. It was really kind of fun, great turnout, even though we had horrible winds. But in any event, I'm here to answer the questions and kind of give you an idea of where we're going next. So I'll just leave it at that, keep it short and sweet.
Great. I don't have any questions. They're
Just
very cool.
An incredible thanks for supporting the project. I know sometimes it's hard to find that money, but it's making a big statement. I just received a call from a gentleman out of what's the island by Detroit? Not Belle Isle, the one further south. I can't think of the name of it.
Grosse-Ile?
What is it?
Grosse-Ile?
Grosse-Ile, yeah. Thank you. He was directly up here a couple of weeks ago, called the city wondering about the blue heron.
Oh, yes,
and
I
he
talked
was
to him.
referred to me, called me to my office, and we've had 2 exchanges now. He was fascinated by this, just thought it was so cool that we're doing this. wanted to know all the details about the artists and how we pulled the project together and whatnot. So it's one example of doing what we intended it to do. I don't know where he's going to go with all that, but he sure was curious.
Yeah.
And he took the effort after a trip up here. He was actually up here for lighthouses, and then noticed the sculpture, especially with the flags over Veterans Day weekend, really drawing a lot of attention to that lower park, that Duck Park there. So, and that's just one example. But what I especially liked about it is someone who's not from here actually acknowledging it and going to the trouble of trying to understand it, because that was really the larger objective, other than beautifying our community even more. It was to potentially draw people in to see unique pieces of public art. So, and I'm happy to say that we're already on to the next step. Bobby Matuzik is here with me tonight, and you may recall that he and Peggy endowed an endowment fund, a community foundation, to spearhead the next wave of fundraising. And we already have a donor for the next sculpture, and will be coming to the city. But I've talked to Greg, and he referred me to city staff, Rich in particular, to talk about the logistics. But we have a donor that specifically asked for a sculpture at the dog park. And even though it's kind of later in our plan, our 10-year plan, obviously when people come forth with money, we'll make that happen first. And so we're well in the works. Do you want to add anything about that?
Not really, other than the fact that when we first intended to set out a schedule, we did it with the idea that as people saw what we were envisioning, that there might be more people come forward, and we'd have to juggle things around. So that's what we're finding, is that the dog park kind of rose to the top, and we're looking at how to make that happen, hopefully next spring or summer, and get that as our first sculpture in the Art Vision series. So.
Right. We had one individual donor come forth with a substantial amount, and then Besser Foundation has already matched us for the next 5 years to help serve as seed money for further contributions. So we're pretty well along the way with this next sculpture. We'll probably need some additional donations, particularly for the foundation. So if you could help us get the word out. The sculptures themselves are pretty much paid for now, but the foundation, as you can imagine, often is as expensive as the sculpture, depending on what we do. But we'll certainly be coming to you all for permission about exactly where, and once we've had a chance to work it out with staff and find the resources to actually put the foundation in. We're thinking of something either round or rectangular that would be a bench type thing, and then the sculpture would be on top of that, so it would be elevated a bit. But do we want to tell more, or are we going to keep it secret?
It's up to you.
Otherwise, we'll just do it at a future date, whichever you want to do.
I mean, they're two dogs, one's 6 feet high and one's 4 feet high, and they're pretty cool sculptures. They're coming out of Massachusetts. We're going to buy these outright based on the donor's interests. And in the future, we'll try to keep it with local arts as much as possible, but as you can imagine, you don't find these people that can do this kind of work just anywhere. But this guy was recognized at Art Prize here in Michigan for his large-scale outdoor urban public sculptures, so it'll be nice to have a piece of his work with us.
I do have a comment for you, for the both of you. For a patient in the hospital walking down that long hall after a surgery or whatever, the problem was to get to the end of the hallway and have that beautiful crane framed by the window in the sunshine is quite an accomplishment. So it's a beautiful sight to see when you're trying to get past whatever. Yeah, it's great.
Very good. Thank
Just
you,
so you
Tim.
know, the signage was a major help at getting people to circulate through the biped. and we're working on lighting. You know, we have Blue Heron lit, and the bike at Washington Park is now lit. And we're working at the college to get the 2 sculptures, well, there are actually 6 total there, the globe from last year, and then the 5 additional sculptures this year, we're working on getting those lit as well. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, well, now we're down to 11, report of officers, a resolution in opposition to Senate Bill 637, placement of small cell 5G technology within public rights of way.
Over the past few years, the telecommunications industry has become more aggressive in its attempts to strip away local control over communities' rights of way in regards to the installation of new telecommunication technology. Senate Bill 637 is just such a tool that's being proposed to greatly limit a municipality's authority over how its rights of way are used and the criteria and rules under which they are used. The usurping of local control over a variety of issues has become a recurring theme of the state legislature for many years. One example are short-term rentals, which is an issue especially on the other side of the state, but does have some impact over here, in which the elected officials in Lansing are currently working with certain parties to wrest control from local jurisdictions and to instead impose state regulations that are pretty loose. So it's just kind of a theme that seems to be ongoing. Regarding this current bill, many municipalities and road commissions in the state, especially larger ones in southern Michigan, are opposing this bill. Although the impact is not nearly as significant on us, it may be in the future. We do not know. But additionally, I think, and for me more importantly, is that it is important, at least on the philosophical end, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, for us to stand up to these ongoing efforts to usurp local control over issues that are best understood and regulated at the local level. Consequently, we request that the attached resolution 2018-05 opposing SB 637 be adopted and that the clerk be directed to forward it to House leaders and Representative Allor. Just to show you how this is just this recurring theme, just last Friday I received another thing through MML that because, and I can't remember what part of the state it was in, a landowner got into trouble with the local ordinances regarding the clearing of land and not getting proper permits and so forth, and they got some heavy fine. Complained to one of our state legislators. So they have introduced a bill that basically now covers the entire state and says local jurisdictions have no authority to prevent such clearing of land unless there are what they call heritage trees, which are certain types of trees, certain ones, and most of them are anywhere from 18 inch to up to 30, 36 inches in diameter. So they're, going to be few and far between in most cases. And it's just going out of, the woodwork on my listserv regarding the fact that this makes no sense that you got one unhappy person in one local jurisdiction and now they're trying to pass a law that affects every jurisdiction across the state. It makes no sense. And again, it's usurping local control and imposing state regulation on a very broad brush approach. And this is what is seen with here. So the recommendation is not to do it. We've had basically contact with one primary telecommunication firm, and Steve Schultz has been the one who has worked with them, and they've actually been very good to work with, have not been an issue. Where I think a lot of these are running into the problem are the bigger companies, your giant corporations going in, and they're the ones who are trying to steamroll this. In the case of the one we have dealt with, it's been a good working relationship that Steve's had. He also says one advantage we have here is the bigger ones often are not as interested in us because we have a lake on one side which really cuts into the effectiveness in terms of cost effectiveness of the systems, because a lot of their signal is going into nothing. It's going out over the lake. So you're instead seeing a lot of generally smaller ones coming in, and they, at least the one we've had that are working, that Steve's had to work with, has been very good experience. Will that always be the case? We don't know. And we certainly don't want to be, anytime, our right-of-ways are very important. We have a lot of infrastructure within them. And so making sure we control that right-of-way and what goes in there and how it goes in, we feel is very important.
Obviously, I support Greg's recommendation. I had forwarded some emails from the mayor's listserv, and I haven't seen anybody on it, any mayor on it, that said that they appreciate this bill. As a matter of fact, most are opposing it. We're actually a bit behind most of the other towns that are most of them got on their resolutions before it got to the Senate, but that's neither here nor there.
That's fine.
So I certainly support the recommendation and the resolution. I don't know if I'm required to read the whole thing, or if media would like to have a copy of it. So I really don't have too much else to say that Greg didn't already.
No, I agree with that too. It's like many times we run into this with a lot of different things where it's, state control over areas that are trying to take away more control from us. I'm in 100% agreement as well, so. I move we approve resolution 2018-05.
Second.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
And Hess.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Next up, communications and petitions to recognize Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a holiday for city council meeting purposes.
Yes, I will speak to that. I would like to propose, and we'll talk about it, but that we recognize Martin Luther Jr. Day, King Day, as a holiday for city council meeting purposes moving forward, and for a couple of reasons. One, to recognize the significance of the holiday, but also there are a lot of community events in recognition of this, and I personally, but I also know, I think many other people maybe that attend city council meetings, and whether required or in other purposes, might like to attend some of the events that are in recognition of the day, and there's a conflict with the day being on the day of our meetings. So if anyone has any other thoughts on it.
I'm in support of this as well, because I've noticed over the last 5 years that I've been on council, when I first started, there wasn't many, that would come forward and ask about that holiday and ask if we could possibly move that meeting in respect to that day. I'm hearing that more and more, so I am in support of this. I don't think it's a big item for us to slide a meeting over. We're doing it for Memorial Day, we're doing it for Labor Day, and I feel like it's not a bad move, so, I'm in support of this.
I'm as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I make a motion that we recognize Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a holiday for city council meeting purposes, and adjust our meeting schedule so that the meeting will be on Tuesday, so it'll be the third Tuesday of that month.
Second.
Excuse me.
Don't say the third, because
Excuse me.
with that,
Okay.
it could be actually the week before. So
Okay.
it should be the
Okay.
Tuesday
The
after
Tuesday
the
after.
third Monday.
Tuesday.
Because it's
Okay.
always the
All
third
right.
Monday is Martin
All right,
Luther
the
King.
Tuesday after the
Jr.
third Monday then.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you might put it on the wrong week.
All right.
Sounds
well,
good.
that's
And I'm
all.
assuming that staff has no issue with that. I didn't think so. Okay.
All right, Noah?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Hess?
Yes.
And Nielsen?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Yeah, just let you know, that will not, should ever conflict with planning commission, so moving it to that Tuesday. Because it'll either be the third or fourth Tuesday of the month, and planning commission's on the second.
Okay.
So we'll agree with you.
Excellent.
I move we adjourn to closed session to discuss water and sewer litigation. Need a second. Can you give me a second on that?
Second. I agree.
Walagora?
Busy.
Hess?
Yes. It's been a
Nielsen?
busy day.
Yes.
And Noah?
Yes. I think
And she did